All right, so you want to unleash that inner innovator, huh? Well, get this. Two books you sent over, Creative Confidence by Tom and David Kelley, and Where Good Ideas Come From by Stephen Johnson. They actually have a lot in common.
It is fascinating, isn't it? Two different approaches, but both tackle this idea that you have to be some kind of creative genius to be,
Uh-huh.
well, creative.
Right, like that whole myth that Kelly brothers are all over it. Their big thing is that everyone has creative potential. It's not some elite club.
It's so ingrained, though. They tell this story in the book. Someone discovers they're really good at something creative, and they're like, oh, well, both my parents were artists, so
As if it's genetic. Like, oh, I'm good at math. My grandpa was an accountant. It's just silly.
exactly. And this is where it gets really cool. This ties right into what Stephen Johnson calls the adjacent possible, which I gotta say blew my mind a little.
Okay, yeah, break down this adjacent possible for me. What's a good example?
Think about the Neo-Nurture Incubator. It's this amazing device, right, designed for developing countries, and they made it out of car parts.
Wait, seriously, car
Yep,
parts?
it's the perfect illustration. Innovation happens when you can connect those seemingly totally unrelated things.
That is so wild. Like, how many adjacent possibles are we just blind to every day?
And that's where both these books, they get really into this idea of being okay with the unexpected,
Yeah.
especially when the unexpected is a mistake.
Hold on, are we saying there's a good side to screwing up? Because I am the queen of messing up, just saying.
Absolutely. Johnson, he's adamant that error, it's not just inevitable, it's often the key ingredient to real innovation. He uses the story of Wilson Greatbatch, the guy who invented the implantable pacemaker by accident.
That's the guy who grabbed the wrong resistor, right? And boom, medical breakthrough.
Precisely. Sometimes those oops moments, they're our biggest breakthroughs.
Which, this is making me think of the Kellys and how they talk about enlightened trial and error, which is such a better way to look at it. Instead of fearing failure, it's a stepping stone.
Exactly. They've got this great example, Steelcase, the furniture company. They went through something like 200 prototypes just to redesign the classroom chair.
200! You're kidding. For a chair.
That's dedication to the process. They get that the best stuff comes from trying, refining, trying again.
Love it. So, we've busted the creative genius myth. We're best friends with our mistakes now. What else? How do we actually unleash this inner innovator?
Both books talk about this idea that it's not just what's happening in our heads, it's the environment too, the people we're around.
You mean our surroundings can, like, help or hurt our creativity?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Johnson, he uses coffee houses, believe it or not. Those used to be like hotbeds for new ideas.
Wait, coffee shops, like where I assume you are right now, sipping a latte, having these brilliant thoughts.
Possibly. But think about it. What makes that environment unique? Diverse people bumping into each other, overhearing things. That cross-pollination is powerful.
Huh, never thought about it like that.
It's about getting outside our routines, our comfortable little bubbles, right? That's where those adjacent possibles are hanging out.
Ditch the home office, got it. I'm liking this advice. But it's not just physical space, right? It's the people, too.
100%. And the Kellys, they talk about building your creative support network.
So people who inspire you but aren't afraid to be like, that's a terrible idea.
Exactly. That safe space to brainstorm, try things, even fail without judgment.
Hmm.
That's where the magic happens.
Collaboration over competition. I'm into it.
So do the Kellys have any examples like how this whole collaborative spirit actually leads to big breakthroughs? So do the Kellys have any example like how this whole collaborative spirit actually leads to big breakthroughs?
Oh, absolutely. One of the best ones, it's about this guy, Doug Dietz. He's a designer, worked at GE Healthcare. He got put on a project to redesign the MRI machine.
Oh, okay. I see where this is going. Those things are, like, famously not fun, especially for kids. Exactly. So at first, Doug's just thinking, how do I make it look sleek, modern, you know? But then he goes to this hospital, actually watches kids going through it.
And it hits him like this isn't about aesthetics, it's the whole experience.
Right. He starts thinking about it from the child's perspective, and it totally transforms his approach. He ends up, get this, turning the whole room into an adventure.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Painting underwater scenes on the walls. The machine itself is like a pirate ship. Even sound effects to make it immersive.
No way. So he actually made it less terrifying for the kids.
Way less. And get this, it actually made the scans better too. Kids were calmer, they'd stay still, so the images were clearer. Empathy leading to better results all around.
That's incredible. This whole deep dive is making me think about creativity so differently. It's not just like inventing a gadget. It's this whole mindset, Curiosity, empathy.
Exactly. That creative confidence, it touches everything we do. Work, relationships, just moving through the world.
Okay, so we've busted myths, we've embraced errors, we've redesigned the MRI experience, all in the pursuit of this inner innovator. But how do we put it into practice? Give me the tools.
Well, the good news is both the Kellys and Johnson, they've got some really practical advice. Like the Kellys, they love mind mapping.
Right, right. That's where you're like making a visual thing with your ideas, connecting them, right?
Exactly. It gets you out of that linear thinking, helps you see those unexpected relationships between your ideas.
Love it. What about Johnson? What's he got in his toolkit?
One of the more interesting ones, he calls it slow multitasking.
Now, hold on. I thought multitasking was like the enemy of getting things done.
It can be. This is different. It's not about juggling a million things at once. It's more like letting your mind shift gears between different projects over time.
So instead of forcing a breakthrough on one thing, you're giving yourself space to explore other stuff.
Exactly. And you'd be surprised. Connections start happening. Ideas cross-pollinate.
Yeah.
It's like cross-training for your brain.
So like, if I'm stuck on a work presentation, I should go doodle for a bit or write some poetry.
Why not? It's about embracing those periods of unfocus. Sometimes that's where the magic happens.
This is making a lot of sense. It's almost like being more playful with your work, with your downtime even.
That's what both the Kellys and Johnson are getting at. Being more mindful about how we cultivate our creativity. It's not some mystical thing. It's a skill to be practiced.
Creating those liquid networks, embracing the errors. It's kind of exciting.
It is. And realizing we all have that potential. If we're willing to get a little uncomfortable, try new things.
I am here for some enlightened trial and error. Before we wrap up, though, anything that really stood out to you from these books, wisdom you're going to carry with you?
That's a great question. I think what really struck me is creative confidence, it's a journey, not a destination. You don't just arrive. It's constant exploration, growing, evolving.
I like that. The muscle, you got to keep flexing.
So for our listener out there, what's one small experiment they could try this week just to get a little more of that liquid flowing? So for our listener out there, what's one small experiment they could try this week just to get a little more of that liquid flowing?
You know, it could be as simple as just shaking up their workspace a bit. Johnson talks about that, how even a small change like swapping the home office for a coffee shop one afternoon can make a difference.
Like hitting the reset button on your brain.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be this huge upheaval.
Exactly. Or here's an interesting one. He talks about acceptation. Basically, finding new uses for the skills you already have.
Okay, example time.
Think about like a bird's feathers, right? Originally, they were for insulation, warmth, then boom, adapted for flight.
This adjacent possible thing in action. Right, so maybe that woodworking hobby, it sparks a new solution to a problem at work. Or, I don't know, your love of photography makes you rethink how you tell stories in general.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. It's seeing what you already know, what you love, with fresh eyes. So, listener, that's your challenge this week. Even just a tiny tweak to the routine, who knows what you'll unlock?
Absolutely. Could be 5 minutes every morning, doing a mind map, or working from somewhere new once a week. Maybe you finally sign up for that improv class you've been thinking about.
The point is, get a little uncomfortable. And remember, those errors, those liquid networks, they might lead you somewhere amazing.
Exactly. And have fun with it. That's the biggest thing, right?
Okay.
Play, experiment, make those mistakes. Trust that those little hunches, they'll connect eventually.
Love it. Well, there you have it. Your crash course in unleashing that inner innovator, courtesy of the brilliant Tom and David Kelley and Stephen Johnson.
2 different perspectives, but that same core message. You've got this. We are all capable of amazing creativity.
We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive as much as we have. And until next time, keep those creative sparks flying.